Good morning, this is Real with Robo, and I think I'm going to make this into a two-part video so that we could explore the whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle, you know, in two separate parts, two distinct parts. Now, I want to introduce the characters in this story, and it, of course, is on the Gannon Stauch case. And I don't say the defendant's name because people like her who kill kids and who think that it's well within their right to lie and act a fool and just basically disrespect everybody, they don't deserve to be remembered. So the defendant, when I refer to that person, is the person on trial currently for killing Gannon Stauch. Another person I'm going to be talking about is Dr., and I use the term loosely, Dorothy Otnow Lewis. A few things with this case. This 11-year-old boy, he was found decomposing in a suitcase in Pace, Florida, under a bridge. Meanwhile, all the time that they were searching for him, the culprit, basically the defendant, was right under their nose. And I believe they knew who did it and had a clear view on who did it or who might be extremely suspect maybe a week after. Now, a lot of people, they want to blame Al Stauch and Landon Stauch. And I think that's not fair because, shit happens in life. Okay, yes, Landon had a drug problem and she lost her kids. Well, if she cared about her kids, then she wouldn't have had a drug problem. Shit happens. Get over yourself, perfect. Okay? And Al Stauch, well, he should have saw the red flags, this, that, and the other thing. But what you don't realize is when you're playing with a manipulator, and when you trust in your wife to do the right thing, sometimes you miss those red flags. And we've all been there. Please stop trying to play perfect. Like you just noticed the red flag and was like, oh, I gotta go. There are times in all of our lives where we look back and go, okay, I was way too blind to see that clearly. Okay, and with a person like the defendant, she apparently knew how to play a good act. Okay, she knew how to play a role. Now, my personal feelings on this case is that she saw Al Stauch and Gannon and little Lena, and she thought, oh, a military man? Oh yeah, he's going to be gone most of the time, and I'll be sitting at home, enjoying my life, only having to play mommy on the weekends. And when it got real, and it became mommy full-time, she couldn't keep up her act. And so when she had to deal with an 11-year-old boy full-time, she at first tried to do what her parents did, her grandparents did, whatever. And when she couldn't keep up that act, she got angry at him and blamed everything on him and blamed everything on Landon. Like, if you weren't doing this, well, then you would have the kids and I would be able to be living fat on the hog. Narcissists don't like it. When we're proven and shown to be jerk-offs, basically. And that's what she was. She was a jerk-off. She could play mommy on the weekends, but she couldn't deal with that full time. Now, how Harley survived, I wouldn't know. I'm not in their family. But my guess is that she was fitting to leave, being as old as she was, and the defendant thought that she would have out all to herself, the house all to herself, and she'll just have to see the kids on the weekends, and then it'll be so easy. Surprise, bitch. Guess being a full-time parent isn't that easy, is it? And I think also she probably had like some kind of loathing, because now she would have to pay her own bills instead of Harley helping her with her spotted past. Because once again, yes, she taught special needs children. I call them blessed children. And it's easy to keep up the facade. But how long did her work last, really? 6 months, a year? Because she couldn't keep up that facade. Her real face started showing through. And now, a lot of you know that this case is also, she's pleading not guilty by reason of insanity. So when I say her real face, I'm not talking about her other personalities, because she doesn't have personality to begin with, never mind multiple personality. Okay? Her real face is this self-centered, want to sit on my butt all day, princess attitude. Basically, spoiled bitch. And yes, I cuss. And I may cuss a lot during this video because this topic, it touches my heart. Number one, it's a kid. Everybody has had that feeling of where, you know what? If you don't get in your room and get out of my face, I'm finna choke you. Everyone's had that feeling. But no one's ever acted on it, except for the defendant and a few others. Okay? We've all been there, where the kid just get on your nerves so much they tap dance on your last nerve that you about to drop kick them in the side of the head, and you give them the option. If you want to live to see tomorrow, I suggest you take your behind somewhere else and make your body follow it. Because if not, I'm going to catch a case. We've all been there. We've been there. But we don't act on that. We've been to the point where we think about it and we're like, I'm pretty certain I know why mothers in the wild eat their young. We've all been there. But we haven't acted on it. Okay? Now, this part of the video, I'm going to explain about the case. I'm not going to bring mental health into it. It shouldn't have been brought in the first place. But I will say this. I believe fully, and I wish more people believed like I believe, and we really need to get a law going where only the courts can give the label of insanity. Okay? Meaning the defense can't say, oh, they're not guilty by reason of insanity. The defendants can't say that. Only the courts, only the judge, only professionals can say, okay, maybe make a panel of judges and psychiatrists, psychologists, whatever, and say, okay, they may have been insane at the time. They get to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. Because it seems like everybody and their mama, when they do something wrong and they know it's wrong, runs off and says, oh, I'm not guilty by reason of insanity. You know, I was crazy at the time. I went through psychosis. And look, my past, I was abused as a child. And half these people, they have their parents sitting in the gallery going, you know what? I wish I did abuse you as a child because I'm fitting to abuse you right now. Like child abuse hit you. It's unbelievable. Okay, the case. As you can see, this case has worked my last nerve. This case, the night before Gannon was murdered, supposedly a fire broke out because Gannon went downstairs to his room in the basement. Keynote, she kept him away from the family. He couldn't live in the main house. He got to live in the basement. And unless a young man, in my opinion, if a little boy wants to live in the basement, okay, cool beans. Have your own thing down there, your little man cave, handle your business. But it just seems to me like she wanted to separate him from everyone else. You know, and separate Harley because she was like 17 and about to leave anyway. So she didn't want them feeling like they were part of the family, in my opinion. But my opinion don't matter. Let's talk about the facts of the case, okay? So apparently there was a fire. And this broad, she done ran upstairs, snatched up Lena, little tiny girl, and Harley, put them in the car, got the dogs, put them in the car, and then went after Gannon. Keep a note of that, okay? Put that in your mind, just right there. Left side, keep it in your left side. Because that's going to matter when logic comes into play, okay? Now, she says she jumped on him and put the fire out. My first question is, if he knocked over the candle, he would have literally had to knock it on himself in order to cause a fire to burn to where she had to jump on him. But then when the evidence come out, there's just a little spot in the carpet, and the area where the spot was is like way back behind the couch. So if he's sitting there playing his little, Nintendo Switch or whatever under the blankets by candlelight, which I would assume kids will do. If they're told, no, you can't do that, go to bed. They gonna try and be sneaky. That's how kids are. But my thing is that when she talked to Al, she said, put your hand up like you talking on the phone. Then turn your head and look. And that's where he had burns. Okay, how do you get forearm burns on the inner sensitive meat when you knock a candle back that damn far? On both arms, it don't make sense. You see what I'm saying? The logic right there, it don't make sense. But keep that in mind too, okay? So she jumped on, she the hero. Oh my God, good mama. You are number one. You are fitting to be Mother of the Year. For real. Okay? And yes, I'm being sarcastic. If you couldn't tell. Now, my question is this. Right after this incident occurred, because I personally believe she burned him. She did that on purpose. To terrorize him, torture him. But that's just my thinking because, I've seen the whole trial. Now, the next thing she do is she make a little short video, like trying to make him confess and trying to, degrade him and demean him, now we gonna have to sell this and sell that in order to get this and get that. You don't do that to a kid that's crying in the background with second-degree burns. How do you know they're second-degree burns, Robo? You're not a medical doctor. Yeah, no, I'm not. Except for when you say bubble burns, and I Google what kind of burns have little bubbles, and it says second-degree burns, I'm going to go with the fire department and the medical doctors on this one. Okay? So he had second-degree burns, and he's crying in the background. And she's more worried about capturing it on video that it wasn't her fault, that it was all his fault. I mean, that's ridiculous. And then when he said, I'm just worried about my burns. And if you haven't seen this video, I recommend you don't. Okay? It is traumatizing. When he said, I'm just worried about my burns. And she said, okay, so tomorrow we'll, and then cut off the video. He's crying. He's got second-degree burns. Bitch. I wouldn't be making a video. I wouldn't give a damn if my husband came home and saw the carpet burnt. Or the whole goddamn couch burnt. My baby got burns. I'm gonna tend to his burns. And if my husband want to fight about it, we gonna scrap. Because I'm gonna be worried about my baby and his burns. Y'all. Okay, I need to remove self out of self and just get on with it. Okay, self out of self. Whew, step back. Good. Now, she then takes Gannon and she puts him in the car with the other kids, with the dogs. And she says she drive around the block. Okay? And a lot of people, in the chat room that I'm in, a lot of my folks, they were like, wait a minute, why didn't she take him to the hospital? And I said the same thing. I'm like, why didn't she take him to the hospital? And then something came to my mind, and I'm like, dunce. If she did it on purpose, those doctors at the hospital will know. And those doctors will call the cops. Boom, bam, boom. She finna go to jail for child abuse. So she drove around until them hydrocodones that she gave that poor boy started kicking in. Then she come back. Okay? And at this point in time, with hydrocodones, I take hydrocodones for my pain. Okay? Because I have a lot of health problems. And they mess me up. And I'm a full-grown adult. Okay? And I've been prescribed hydrocodones since 2012. So I know about these things. I believe she gave a pill to that boy and then drove around until he calmed down and come back in, then put him to bed. Okay? Now this is where it gets antsy, because this is where a lot of people don't want to go into their depraved mental thinking, which I have no problem with, because it's a case. You got to think like the killer thinks, else you'll never know what happened. Now, she decides, because she's worried about Gannon and his burns. You know, what if he go down to the next door neighbor and the neighbor asks about it, he tell him about it, the cops gonna be called, she gonna be in trouble. So let me call into work right fast. You know, let me text him, whatever she did. It's irrelevant. And she say, you know, my stepfather died. You know, not saying that he didn't die like 10 years ago. Okay, we ain't going into that. But apparently, her stepfather just died in a tragic accident. Okay, so the head teacher, the coordinator, whatever, said, no, you go ahead, you stay at home, you get better, and then call me when you could come in. So we already see her setting up. And then she called into Gannon's school and say he can't come to school because, you know, he have his little GI tract problems that he's been having. And so he gonna stay out of school today. This is the point in my mind, my depraved thinking, where Gannon becomes a hostage. He's a hostage as of this point. Because if he would have went to school, the teacher would have asked about the burns and how they happened and what went on after that, and then she would have called the cops. Period. Gannon is a hostage at this point. So when she see that the hydrocodone didn't off this poor boy, she went ahead and gave him more. And so now he wobbled into the car to go to Petco. Now, if you don't believe the hostage theory that I have, ask yourself this. Why is she constantly checking out the window to see if anybody by the car? She looking out the window so much, so busy about keeping up into Gannon's business, that she leave her phone at the Petco, okay? But she all up in Gannon business so much that she watching, she making sure nobody come by that car, because she doesn't want Gannon to go, help me please, okay? He's a hostage. So now she go back to the house. I don't know how she got her phone back, but we'll get into that later. But she go back to the house. And I think Gannon just said, I just want to go to bed. I'm just going to go lay down. Okay? And the prosecutor brought up a very important point when they were closing. The pictures of Gannon in his bed and the pictures of them having a great time at the Garden of the Gods, which I personally think she tried to kill him. That's how he got scrapes on his hands, his elbows, and his knees, and why they had to cut the trip short is because she probably tried to push him or bump him off the cliff. You know what I mean? But that's all irrelevant. Let's get back to this part. I think he went to bed and she done called over her boy, because I think that she was probably cheating on him, cheating on Al with someone else. And then I believe personally that Gannon walked in on them and he was like, no, bruh, no, I'm done with you. And she done chased him. Because see, they say that the beatdown started in the hallway. If he's in his room, why the beatdown need to be started in the hallway? I think he caught her doing something she ain't supposed to be doing. And she started the beatdown in the hallway. And you know, those were the little drops of blood or whatever. And then I think she went into the bedroom busted him upside the head, didn't feel like it was enough, stomped off, grabbed the boards, and beat the hell out of him. And then when that wasn't enough for her, because she was mad, ooh, this boy, he gonna stand up to me? How dare you stand up to me, fight against me from hitting you? She saw a pair of scissors or some kind of sharp object. I think it was scissors because the scissors were in the dishwasher. Why were they there? Trying to be sterile and hygienic? I think not. So I think she used the scissors, started stabbing at him, and he's fighting her off as best as he could because he's probably still under the influence of those hydrocodones. They still metabolizing in his body. And so she's stabbing at him. He's fighting her off. And then finally she busts him in the head one more time and he bloop onto the bed. Roll over the bed and try and hide behind the bed. And that's when she just said, you know what? I'm sick of you. And went and got the gun. Because if you look at that, there's 2 bullets in the pillow. Now, I don't know the trajectory, so I could be completely wrong on this. Maybe she shot him when he was asleep. I don't know. But from what it seems like with the other evidence, seems like the splurts on the wall was from her stabbing him, so they got to be standing up. And then he tried to hide behind the bed. And she shot twice, 2 in the pillow, and then shot again, and that bullet traveled along that bed and hit him in the only thing showing, and that was his chin. I'm pretty sure she was going for his forehead, but who knows, right? And so, this is the major point I want you to keep in mind. There was a deleted search on Google. Keep this one in mind. How to stop an arterial bleed when pressure isn't working. Okay? It's a long sentence to remember. But remember that for me. And then I think after that, she went outside, got her little Tiguan or whatever it's called, Tiguan, and backed it in there. And the rest is pretty much history. Okay? Now, the reason why I said remember that particular Google search is because she's claiming insanity. That means you're not in your right mind. Yet she had presence of mind enough to look and say, you know what? That's an arterial bleed. She had presence of mind to say, you know what? For an arterial bleed, you need to apply pressure. She had presence of mind enough to say, I better Google what to do next because this isn't working. And she has presence enough to say what to do for an arterial bleed when pressure isn't working. 11 words on a phone. But she was out of her mind. Then she took Gannon's body, buried it up in this certain area near an S-curve. Then went and retrieved it afterwards and took it to its final resting place in Pace, Florida, where it was found by a bridge worker and all these Google searches show that she was in a presence of mind to know that the cops were hot on her trail and she needed to hide, disguise herself, get facial surgery, find out how they do things, maybe run off to wherever. She also had presence of mind to clean up. And it may sound crazy because she was calm when talking to the police, even though they were walking toward where she hid the body in the garage. But she was cool as a cucumber. Well, that's crazy. No, it isn't. It's called manipulation. It's called trying not to draw attention to yourself. She knew what she was doing, and she knew what she did was wrong. Okay? So there's a lot of nuance to this case, but basically, she tortured Gannon, held him hostage, murdered him, and then tried to cover up the crime. Typical criminal. And I'll be back with part 2 in just a moment.